Okay, so for today's class, we're going to move on to chapter 6 in book 2, the higher level book. So we just finished chapter 5. I got back out here. So chapter 5, algebra 1, is called expressions. We went through some of the content in terms of keywords. We did evaluating or substitution. We did simplifying, which was adding together different terms in the same family, and then we did expanding brackets. Okay, I split expanding brackets into 2 because there's kind of a bit in it. Okay, so then moving on to chapter 6. Chapter 6 is called Factorising. Okay, so there's a lot here that you're supposed to remember from doing in first year, but it's so important that I'm just going to teach to you as if you haven't done it before, because if for any reason you don't remember this stuff from last year, it will kind of haunt you. You need, factorising is one of those skills that you absolutely need, and it's kind of an unusual one because for some reason, the skills I just taught you, like evaluating, expanding and simplifying, are so important as well. But my experience is with students that they remember those 3, no problem evaluating, no problem simplifying, and no problem expanding brackets. But for some reason, they can't remember how to factorise. So I don't know why that is. They're equally as important. Okay, so just make sure that you understand what we go through. Now I've lost my one note. Right. So, first things I suppose is there are 3 asterisks on that different factorizations that are possible. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is called highest common factor. Now, the reason I have an asterisk on 3 is because there's kind of an additional grouping that called grouping using highest common factor. Okay, so this, you do the highest common factor once, in this you do it twice, right? So it's essentially the same question. It's just that in the grouping version of the question, you have to do the highest common factor twice. That's all. So it's not its own group, but I will sort of be teaching it as a separate thing, if that makes sense. The second type of factorising is called the difference of 2 squares. And the third type of factorising is so it's for trinomials, which we will talk about. And the version I'm going to teach you how to do is called the guide number version. Okay, there's a few versions of it. I just think the guide number version can be a little bit tedious in places, like if you've learned the other way of doing it, the other way can be a little bit quicker. But again, in my experience, I just think that people are either brilliant at doing it the other way and they get it right every time, or they can't do it and they get it wrong 80% of the time. For a higher level class, you need to be able to do trinomials, and you need to be able to get them right all the time, because there's going to be 10 of them on your paper. And don't even get me started if you go on to Leave Insert higher level, there's trinomials everywhere all over that paper. So I'm going to go with the guide number and I'll show it to you that way. And I just think it's the more efficient way of doing it in terms of getting the right answer. Okay, so all we're going to concentrate on today is highest common factor, and not even the grouping version, just highest common factor. Okay, so look, we have the time. We'll take this nice and slowly and make sure that you remember this. Okay, so you need to remember that the first thing I taught you in factorization is that there are 3 different types of factorizations, not just 1, 3. Okay, and they're all equally important. So let's look at highest common factor. Now, I should say, actually, before I go any further, explain this to you. Sorry. So factorising is the reverse of expanding. We turn the given expression into a product. So say if so the last homework that you did, if I asked you to expand, 2x and then 4x plus 8 or something like that, right? So you do this distributively and you'd go, oh no, that's a really bad example. Let me just change that. So, okay, so you multiply the 2 by the 4 and you get 8, and the x by the x is x squared. And then the 2, it's a plus because this is positive and this is positive. So the answer is plus, and then 2 by 7 is 14, and then you have the x. Yeah, so that's expanded. If I then asked you to factorise what we just got there, 8x squared plus 14x, you would get that, which is bringing us back to the start. Okay, now I'm going to explain how I got that in a second, but that is what this thing means. So the same as plus and minus. So if you do start with a 6, say, and I plus a 2, I get 8. If I then do the opposite of plus 2, which is minus 2, it brings me right back to my 6, because a plus and a minus are inverse operations. Okay, expanding and factorising are inverse operations. Okay, and we know that expanding is just multiplying. So factorising is just a type of division. Okay, where you take the expression and you split it back up into the two things that will multiply to make that expression. Yeah? Okay. So anyway, that's important. So let's have a look at, I lost it again. Sorry. We'll have a look at a question. Right, so what you need to do when you're asked to factorise, when I have all three of them done, I'll talk about how you recognise one from the other. Because like I said, there are 3 different types of factorisation and they're kind of hard. It's hard to tell the difference, but hopefully by the time you're at the end, you'll be able to tell the difference. The highest common factor, you sort of figure out its highest common factor more by elimination. So you go, right, well, it's definitely not a trinomial. It's definitely not a difference of 2 squares. So it has to be a highest common factor. So it's sort of like the last option. Anyway, so I've established that this is the highest common factor. Did I even write this as a heading? I did not. Just for your notes. So you look at the 2 terms. So here's the first term and here's the second term. And you ask yourself, do they have anything in common? Is there anything that divides into both terms? Okay, and I always do the numbers and the letters separately. So let's just look at the numbers. The numbers are 4 and 10. So is there any number that divides into 4 and 10? What we are looking for is the highest common factor of 4 and 10. Okay, so obviously 1 will divide into both of them, and 2 will divide into both of them, right? And 2 is higher, highest common factor. 2 is higher than 1, so 2 is what we're looking for. Okay, the highest common factor of the numbers. So I'm going to put my 2 here. Then we look at the letters. So here I have a b squared, and here I have a b. Okay, so what is common is just one b. This obviously has an extra 1, and this only has the 1. So what's common is 1b. Okay, so I take the 2b and I bring it outside there, and then I open up my bracket. Okay, then essentially what we're going to do is we're going to, just let me get rid of those. So we're going to divide each term by the highest common factor. Okay, so 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now I have b squared and b. Okay, so b squared, and on the bottom I have b. Okay, we know that b squared is just 2b's, and on the bottom I have 1b. So this one cancels out this one, leaving you with 1b. And that goes there. Okay, the sign is positive, and then we do this one. So 10 divided by 2 is 5, and here I have a b on the top and a b on the bottom, so they're just going to cancel each other straight out, so I won't do anything else. So that's my answer. Two b bracket 2b plus 5. Okay, we'll try another one. Right, so numbers. So I've got a 9 and an 18. So what is the highest common factor of 9 and 18? It's 9. Okay, now letters. Here I have a PR and here I have a PY. So is there any letter that's common to both terms? P is common. I open up my bracket and then I'm going to divide this term by my highest common factor, and I'm going to divide this term by my highest common factor. Okay, so 9 divided by 9 is 1. The P and the P will cancel, and that just leaves me with the or. Then the minus I write down. 18 divided by 9 is 2. The P and the P will cancel, and I'm just left with the Y. And that's the answer. Alright, so I will try one more just because I know these can seem a little tricky at first. See if I can find, I'll just pick anyone really. I'll try this one. Okay. Just ignore that. Right, so the numbers I have 21 and 14. So I'm looking for the highest common factor of 21 and 14, which I think is 7. Now here again I have 2 b's and here I have just the 1. So what's common is 1b. And I open up my bracket. So I divide this by the highest common factor and this by the highest common factor. So 21 divided by 7 is 3. Here, that can be written as 2 b's. So this one will cancel with this one, but I still have one left over. The plus, and then 14 divided by 7 is 2, and the b cancels out the b, so it's just 2. Okay, so that's highest common factor. I'll give you a couple of them for homework, and then the next, Monday, we'll move on to highest common factor from group. Okay.